website to that company is unifiedfieldtheories.com. Just simply unifiedfieldtheories.com. And you'll see everything so far that I've done. I chose this Alex Gray photo because it shows the person sitting in the lotus position with the chakra points and this grid, which is like the unified field. So I thought it was appropriate to use that picture. Okay, what is bioharmonic resonance? Well, there's two definitions basically that we came up with. One is more of the scientific definition, and there's also an alternative definition. The scientific definition is bioharmonic resonance is a type of resonance associated with a living organism's ability to resonate with the natural frequencies that are associated with the biological entity and its surroundings, including coupling of the organism with the energy stored in the zero-point energy field or vacuum. And you heard Nassim talk about that 10 to the 93 grams per cubic centimeter. Now, if you take that 10 to the 93 grams and you convert it to energy, it's in terms of ergs, I don't even know what the exponentials are on that. It's huge because we have E equals mc squared. Okay? The alternative definition, which would be more applicable to the layman, would be that bioharmonic resonance is a therapeutic method for naturally inducing a desired biological and or psychological response through the use of resonant sound waves. These sound waves are specifically designed to enhance both the physiological and psychological well-being of the person. Each sound wave has been specifically encodes therapeutic functionality that is designed to produce a distinct biological and or psychological response for which it was designed. Examples include weight loss, smoking cessation, lucid dreaming, pleasure, relaxation, lowering of high blood pressure, we're still working on that, high energy, vitamin therapy, relief from depression, meditation, enhancement of memory and brain function, and stress reduction. Well, first of all, what is a harmonic? A harmonic is any integer multiple of the fundamental frequency. So for example, the second harmonic of 14 megahertz is 28 megahertz. The third harmonic is 42 megahertz. And as the degree of the harmonic increases, the signal strength decreases. So therefore, the second harmonic is always the strongest harmonic when you're dealing with whether it's radio frequency, usually radio frequency is basically electromagnetic waves. Now, what is resonance? What is the concept of resonance? Resonance is the tendency for a system to oscillate at larger amplitudes at some frequencies than at others. Now, resonance phenomena occur with all types of waves, including mechanical waves, electromagnetic waves, acoustic vibrations, namely sound, NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance, ESR, electron spin resonance, and quantum wave functions. Okay, so what is the biofield and how does it come into play using bioharmonic resonance? Well, the biofield is somewhat of an esoteric topic, and it's been termed and represented in so many esoteric disciplines that to name them all would be redundant. So suffice it to say that the field is one which encompasses the entire human body and is connected and or coupled to the cosmic unified field. So I use the word cosmic a lot because I think a lot of people miss that concept. What is cosmic? What does cosmic mean? Well, cosmic is basically everything. The unified field, we're all in a quantum superpositional state. The whole world, all living organisms, the entire universe is all in a quantum superposition. So it's been called the universal life force, prana, ki, elan vital, aura, which is the currently photographic terminology that's used, vitalism and spirituality, which is the entelechy of Dresch, the L field of Harold Saxton Burke, the morphic field of biologist Rupert Sheldrake, or the odic force of chemist Carl von Reichenbach, the psychoenergetics by Professor William A. Tiller, the Orgone energy by Wilhelm Reich, and the organismic theory and Kundalini, which Dan is very familiar with. Of course, Dan's very familiar probably with a lot of these, as I've seen him talk many times about these forces. Okay, how is the so-called biofield been measured in the laboratory? Well, I got the opportunity to meet Dr. Konstantin Karakov while I was in the UK, working alongside with Dan. And he's at the St. Petersburg State Technical University of Informational Sciences. And he uses a form of Kirlian photography called gas discharge visualization, or GDV. His GDV instruments, one of which I personally used, utilizes the use of glass electrodes, which to create a pulsed electrical field excitation called the perturbation technique, to measure this electrophotonic glow. So people would put their thumb, all their fingers in there, and it would create this basically an aura-like picture, and that was the gas discharge visualization. And then he correlated that to various biological functions of the different organs of the body. So if you saw a hole in your aura, he was able to correlate that with a biological problem. Okay. How does the GDV technique assess a body? There's a paper that he published, Emerging Models of Energy and Control in Biophysics, and here's the abstract. The paper just presents emerging models of physiological control and energy economies in biophysics and biochemistry to explore possible mechanisms by which the gas discharge visualization technique can assess physiological states in conventional and complementary medical analysis, and to propose research questions focused on such possible mechanisms. A central concept in these emerging models is the storage of coherent, and that's the key word, coherent energy as both coordination and control in resonant information channels, and is immediately available energy for work in organs and tissues. Okay, how else has the biofield been measured? In 1978, Mesmer discovered a simple device which can detect and measure a force around the body, which may be what Mesmer called the so-called animal magnetism. And it shows up as a spin or rotational force on a frame which is suspended over a person's head. Here's a picture of it. These are magnets, and they're all aligned to the North Pole pointing to this reflecting mirror. And here's the light source, and then here's this wall scale. And they used a lady's compact mirror which slightly focuses the spot of light. Works better than a flat mirror, they claim. I guess there's this concave mirror that ladies use for their compact mirrors. In the apparatus shown above, the ring magnets were placed, as I mentioned, so that the north poles were pointing toward the pyramid top, the point at the top of the pyramid. Okay. Although a pyramid frame was initially used, the force has no connection with the so-called pyramid energy, which they claim. The author was investigating the possible existence of pyramid energy when this other effect was accidentally discovered. The frame could be of any material, wood, plastic, metal, any shape. It is suspended by a nylon filament. When a person sits under a hanging frame, it will rotate a few degrees. Okay, so here's the person's head. The biofield is probably coming from the crown chakra, and as we saw from John's talk last night, he had this big cone-shaped thing up here. And other people have said that the biofield is this like rotating cone or something, that vortex, if you will, or torus, and I'll show you another picture. And then this picture too just shows a different version of it, where they took a tetrahedron. Okay. Other versions of the device have included the spiral helix fashioned from quarter-inch copper tubing, three-sided pyramidal forms, large rings, and pyramids hanging inside the bottle. Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is that better? Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. There's something wrong. Okay. Devices have been made and tested with more, less, or no magnets. And that's interesting that there was an effect with no magnets as well. But I suspect that there was more of an effect with magnets, because I think that the biofield intuitively is both a magnetic and electric and an electromagnetic force. The instruments are stable and rarely move when no one is near them. Over 1,000 observations have been made. Instruments suspended in bottles demonstrate that air currents and thermal currents are not involved in their movement. Okay, so they eliminated that possibility, or those possibilities, I should say. Units placed in bottles or glass cases are caused to move by placing one's hands at the sides of the case. So what they did is electrical shielding or electrical grounding of the operator made no difference. However, soft iron wrapped around the bottle stopped the effect. Well, then, what is the biofield? It appears to be a genuine new force in science. It's not defined. It manifests itself as a physical force clearly observed on all types of biological matter. As of this time, 1989, it appears to be a force which produces movement at right angles around the human body. It does not push or pull like gravity or electrostatic forces. It appears to be in the form of a circular or spiral force around the body. The origin of the force is not electrical, magnetic, heat, or gravitational. It is much too large to be produced by these forces. It needs a name. The author has chosen to call it simply the biofield. This is just a simple graph. The A index, the Earth is surrounded by a geomagnetic field. Thank God for that, because if we didn't have the Earth's magnetic field, we'd be bombarded with solar particles and we would all fry. So the geomagnetic field around the Earth protects us from the sun's radiation, particles coming from the sun. And there is, to some degree, some correlation. You see the solid line graph is the geomagnetic A index. The dotted graph is the biofield measurements. It looks like here there was some resonance right here because there was they coincide. But you see at some certain points there were deviations. Right here, I'm pointing all the deviations from the biofield measurements and the corresponding A index. I'm going to skip the next one because it's not relevant. Wilhelm Reich's Orgone energy and Orgone accumulator. This is basically the antithesis of vegetative life. You have the parasympathetic, and this is very, psychological. In all courses of psychology, they teach the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is the expansion towards the world, whereas the sympathetic nervous system is the contraction or away from the world.
Click again.
Okay.
You scroll down.
Oh.
Get there.
so myelins and biogenesis. This was done by Reich, yes. He observed from a blade of grass in water, a decaying or disintegrating blade of grass, that these bions, these particles in B, these particles started to clump together. Then all of a sudden this membrane formed around them, okay? And then the same organism became in this contracted or elongated form. That's actually D, I'm sorry. And it was pulsing back and forth. It was life, it was alive. What was this thing? Well, these organisms were observed to swim freely, develop a mouth, and eat. They consumed food. Some of these organisms stopped turning into the spheroid shape, retaining the elongated shape here, shown in D, and developed further into amoebas, which are bacteria. You can find them in ponds of water and so forth and so on. And if you want to, a number of people have built these so-called Orgone accumulators, and they have thermometers in there to measure a temperature. Well, Reich found that organic materials attracted and held the orgone energy, and the metal attracted and then rapidly repelled it. Okay, so organic materials attracted the field, like kind of what Dan was saying, the fractal field, phase conjugate fractal field, with the organic materials, but the metal repelled it. It first attracted it and then repelled it. So what they did was they made this like Faraday cage-like device where they were basically, they lined the inside with a metal and made the alternating layers of organic and inorganic, probably ceramic materials. And then they discovered atmospheric orgone energy was accumulated, concentrated inside the accumulator. And they measured the temperatures. And this is documented on various websites. If you just Google orgone, oops.
One up.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see that. Okay, so this is one possible configuration of the biofield. It's like this multiple, well, this looks like a double torus, but could be multiple toroids, and this is just, between all these tori, there should appear precise, resonant, and collective coherence quantum phenomena, so as to form a gross and unified toroidal field that embraces the human body at certain distances around it. So kind of like when you're talking to someone, you know, you're kind of resonating with them, and your biofield is interacting with their biofield, and so forth and so on. And this is what sometimes people, like I know with myself, when I meet someone for the first time, I can tell whether I like them or not. And that may be that our biofields are canceling or something. There's some problem there that my biofield is canceling out with yours, and there's no harmony or harmonics associated with it. Okay, so listen, just wrap it up. The list of emotions and the ailments that the bioharmonic resonance currently addresses so far. Meditation, weight loss, smoking cessation, lucid dreaming, multivitamin package, relaxation, pleasure, memory, and antidepressant. Okay. How does the bioharmonic resonance therapy work? Works by supplying any missing resonant frequencies the body may have. Remember, Elizabeth Rauscher was talking about the magnetic frequencies that were missing in an arthritic patient, or a patient that was had a car run over their foot or something like that. Certain frequencies were missing, so this technology is also like that. By stimulating the immune response through the use of naturally occurring harmonics, by enhancing and strengthening the human body's defense mechanisms, by harmonizing the body's critical energy points or chakras into alignment. Actually, Valerie showed me, she was taught a procedure, like an exercise on how to balance and harmonize your chakras, because your chakras should be in a straight line in the lotus position. for total harmonization of the body by producing a meditative and relaxing environment, and also by brain entrainment, especially with the meditation track, and that gets more into the proprietary nature of the product. How can we scientifically verify the efficacy? We're in the process of doing that now. For memory, a double-blind standard psychological examination, they're well-known. Very, very standardized tests. We can do double-blind, and we would do the same thing for all of the other parts. Okay, we're almost done here with that part, this first part. How was bioharmonic resonance developed? It was developed in early '07 when Michael Helios, who was the discoverer, and who is the discoverer, I should say, of the astrosonic effect.
Michael is with us here on Skype.
On Skype. Hi, Michael. I talk to Michael almost every day. Suggested the sonification of the infrared spectrum of biosignificant chemicals, which concept that I and Bill Donovan have jointly been developing since. So Michael had suggested, hey Sal, why don't you take the infrared spectrum of certain chemicals and convert them down into sound waves? And then I said, okay, that sounds like a really brilliant idea. So then I took an Excel spreadsheet and all this stuff. Well, I first took the FTIR spectrum. FT, by the way, means Fourier transform. The reason they use Fourier transform in infrared spectroscopy is to increase the signal-to-noise ratio. That's the only reason they use Fourier transform. It's an excellent technique because it enables you to get a perfect infrared spectrum of a very, very, very tiny sample. Okay, and I did years and years of this research. And so the Fourier transform is a way of increasing the signal-to-noise ratio. Okay, decrease the noise, increase the signal. Okay. So I took the FTIR spectrum of vitamin C and placed all of the absorbance frequencies and their corresponding amplitudes. It's important to get the amplitudes as well as the frequencies into an Excel spreadsheet. These were then further manipulated using a proprietary algorithm. Finally, the numbers were then imported into a program called Mathematica 6.0. And in this program, you can create FM, AM, you name it. You can do anything in this program. Absolutely amazing. It's by Wolfram Research Incorporated. And you can spit out a wave function, a frequency modulated wave function. And so I did that. And when I first played the vitamin C file, I could taste it. I got this sour taste in my mouth. And I was sitting in front of my computer, and I was playing this wave file, and I got this. So we started sending the file around, all around, to Michael Helios and Bill Donovan, and what's Marisol Gonzalez over in Spain, who's got a company called Biosonica, and she started a forum on it and everything. I didn't participate because I was working on my own product, but this is known as synesthetic response, or synesthesia. Try saying that 10 times in a row. Synesthesia is a neurologically based phenomenon in which stimulation of one of the sensory or cognitive pathways leads to an automatic, involuntary experiences in a second sensory or cognitive pathway. So it's a kind of mixing of the senses.
Sometimes called psychic tunneling.
Psychic tunneling? Okay, thank you. This is just an example of caffeine, the infrared spectrum of a caffeine molecule. Here you see the two carbonyl bands. There's two carbonyl bands. These are the carbon-hydrogen frequencies, the aliphatic, the aromatic, and I just wanted to put, so I had painstakingly taken all of these numbers, but there was a lot of data crunching involved, so almost done here. This is an infrared spectrum of Valium, which I took 10 milligrams during Nassim's talk.
You didn't use the wave function, you used the real.
I didn't use the wave function, I used the real stuff. Anyway, so That's what this conference has been, the best conference I've been to, so a lot of good stuff. Incidentally, this is, sorry, this was nicotine, I believe. Yeah, this is nicotine. And you can see all these frequencies. Look at all of them. There's tons of them, okay? So I painstakingly had to plug all these numbers into an Excel spreadsheet, do all this manipulation. And that was it. That's a graphical representation of synesthesia, where you can, associate the colors for the letters or the numbers. Okay, part 2. This is me talking about the magnetic phase conjugation and its effect on water and seed germination and growth. And all these concepts and intellectual property are those of Dan Winter. I basically performed a series of tests in the UK. First of all, phase conjugate, the phase conjugate fractal field magnetic array used for treating water is a proprietary array of strong magnets, about 5,300 Gauss each, and they were first assembled inside that copper tubing that Dan showed you the picture of on his presentation earlier this morning. We used regular tap water. Incidentally, tap water we measured the ORP, which is the redox potential, was always consistently around 730, which is very bad drinking water. You never want to drink water with an ORP value of that magnitude. The lower the ORP, as Pat Flanagan told you yesterday, is the best type of water. Roughly around 200 or 300 is good. If you can get below 200 or 300, like down to 0 or even negative, that's the best water. Okay? So our tap water was horrible. And I measured it almost every day. So the regular tap water, about 10 liters of it was circulated through this magnet stack, and I can't go into the, how it was built, using a pump for about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on which experiment we were doing. Resulting water was used in a germination study of white mustard seeds, where the tap water served as the control. The following results after 4 days of germination showed an approximately 250% increase in germination rate. Now there's a difference between germination rate and germination yield, and we'll talk about that later. Of the magnetically treated water versus the control sample. This experiment was replicated at least 4 times with the same results. Now, just to summarize some other research findings by other people, that it increases solubility, that magnetic water treated with magnets, much weaker magnets than we use, increases the solubility of vitamins and minerals, improving the biological activity of solutions positively affecting the performance of humans, plants, and animals. The property of magnetism is present in every living cell. This is key. Just listen to that. Isn't that amazing? The property of magnetism is present in every living cell. That was published by Slowinski in 1988, Pop 1989, and Gu in 1992. The equilibrium of living cells can be restored, wow, with the help of magnets, Lamb, 2001, my goodness. Now we're beginning to see how we can solve our healthcare problems in the U.S. and the world. Okay, the germination study was basically take 2 shallow dishes, charge it with 50 mils of tap water, 50 mils of the magnetically treated water, and I say 30 minutes of, we circulated the water using a diaphragm pump for 30 minutes. And then I took a 4x4 cotton mat, and I placed a mat in each dish. After the mats were absorbed the maximum amount of water, 30 mustard seeds, white mustard seeds, were planted in each dish very carefully in 5 rows of 6. And the seeds were then covered with this black plastic, because I just wanted to avoid any evaporation. to avoid evaporation, and the dishes were stored at room temperature. After 4 days of germination, the following observations were made. Here we see the tap water and the magnet water. In the tap water, we had 11 ungerminated seeds. Magnet water, there were only 5. Tap water, 10 partially germinated. Magnet water, 6 partially germinated. In the tap water, we had 7 1-inch tall, or long, I should say, stems. 6 1-inch, so it's about the same there. Here we had 0 2 inches, 3 2 inches, 0 1.5 inch stems, 3 1.5, and then here we had 2 1/2 inch as opposed to 7 1/2 inches. So I basically created a formula whereby you can basically see how I got my 250%, basically 20 divided by 8. So that's the germination rate. Okay, how do we explain this? Well, we took Dr. Karatkov's fractality in water device, in this case, and it also measures a whole series of other variables, one of which is the entropy. Now, we found, and I'm just not going to read all this stuff here, that the blue was the the blue was the tap water, and the red was the magnet water. This is 100 data points each. 100 data points here and 100 data points here. And we found that there was a net negative entropic effect. In other words, delta S, the change in entropy, was negative, which is good, because what that means is a decrease in entropy. Entropy is the amount of order or disorder in a system. So the system here is the water, okay? So what's happening? What are the magnets doing to the water? They're making them more ordered. And when the water molecules are in a more ordered state, they facilitate growth. They're more apt to take in the minerals and the vitamins and so forth from the soil into the seed to help it grow. So we have scientific proof of that right here. That there was and I think this was a 46% reduction in entropy. This was measured by Dr. Karatkov's device. Skip one. Okay, I want to point something out here that's really kind of amazing, because I did this experiment so many times. Here's the tap water, okay, and here's the magnet water. In the tap water, many of the stems were like lying down on the surface of the mat. They didn't have the strength to support their own leaves. Whereas in the magnet water, look at how strong they are. They're supporting all of them, every single one of them that sprouted were able to support the weight